How's it going, everybody? Welcome to my Week 10 prediction show. Well, we had a pretty fun Week 9 in the NFL. A couple of upsets that I'm going to mention. But let's start with how I did in my predictions last week. I went 9-5, so not too bad. Kind of average at this point, giving me an overall record of 90-44 on the season. So I'm doing pretty good, I think, in my opinion. 90-44, not too bad. I know in the pick'em leagues that I'm in 3, and I'm doing kind of mid in each of them, except there's one with just a personal little friend group of mine, only 4 guys, and I think I may be winning that one. So I'd have to look. I haven't looked in about a week or so. Couple of upsets, like I said, the Carolina Panthers taking down the Packers in Lambeau Field on a game-winning field goal, and what was a horrible performance by the Packers. The Vikings took down the Blue Kitties in Detroit in J.J. McCarthy's return. The Steelers forced 6 turnovers to take down the Indianapolis Colts. And the Arizona Cardinals go into Dallas and manhandle the Cowboys. I know that last one there, the Cardinals taking down the Cowboys, maybe not everybody sees it as an upset, but I kind of do. I think that the Cowboys' offense should have performed way, way better than they did, but they just got manhandled. 4 teams on a bye heading into Week 10. The Bengals, Titans, Cowboys, and Chiefs. So hope they get good rest and are ready for their return. All that being said, let's jump right into this. We'll start Week 10. Thursday Night Football, the Raiders taking on the Broncos in an AFC West matchup. The Raiders coming off a loss to Jacksonville in overtime. Geno Smith, 4 touchdown passes, 1 interception, in what turned out to be a pretty good game. Geno Smith played very, very well. Genty, 42 yards on the ground. He also had 5 receptions for 47 yards and a receiving touchdown. Brock Bowers, he had 12 receptions, 127 yards, and 3 tutties. Polamau, I don't know if I'm probably butchering his name. He had an interception. This game went into overtime. Brock Bowers, like I said, he had his return. He missed the last couple games with an injury, so it was nice to see him back out on the field. And the Raiders seemed to have it. They seemed like they were going to be able to get an upset victory, but they were denied on the 2-point conversion by Davon Hamilton. But overall, in my opinion, the Raiders looked a lot better. Now, does that necessarily say a lot more about the Raiders or the Jacksonville Jaguars? I'm kind of going to lean a little bit more with the Raiders because I think that the Jaguars should have played better. But the Raiders get a loss nonetheless. They'll have to head into Denver and take on the Broncos, who are coming off a close victory over the Houston Texans, where they won on a game-winning field goal. Bo Nix, 173 yards, 2 tutties, and an interception. J.K. Dobbins led the team in rushing yards with 61. Harvey had 5 receptions, 51 yards, and a tutty. Sutton had a tutty. The defense for the Broncos, who have pretty much been playing lights out all season, they had 4 sacks, and they didn't allow any touchdowns. All the scores from the Houston Texans were all field goals. The Broncos get out of Houston. 6 straight wins for the Broncos. They are one of the hottest teams in football. I think that because of that, they're going to win on Thursday Night Football. I'm going to pick the Broncos. Of course, it is a divisional matchup. The Raiders and the Broncos have a long, long history. I am going to roll with the Broncos. I think their defense is going to overpower the Raiders, and I think that Bo Nix and this Denver offense is going to bounce back a little bit from kind of a sore performance, at least to their standards, against the Texans. I'm going to go with the Broncos here. I think it is a close divisional game, but Broncos come out with the win and get their 7th straight win. Then we'll head to Sunday morning in Berlin. I believe this is the first game in Berlin. I could be wrong, don't quote me on that. But it will be the Atlanta Falcons taking on the Indianapolis Colts. The Falcons coming off a close loss to the Patriots in a Super Bowl rematch in Foxborough. Michael Penix returned. Missed PAT with about 4.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter is kind of what switched this game up. I know the Falcons had another chance later on in the game, but that turned out to be the difference, so a lot closer than what I personally thought it was going to be. I thought the Patriots were just going to steamroll them. But, like I said, Penix returned. He had 271 yards, 3 tutties. Bijan Robinson held to only 46 yards on the ground. Drake London, he went off. He had 9 receptions, 118 yards, and 3 tutties. 6 sacks for the Falcons defense. LaCole London, Julian Walker, and Brandon Darlis all had 2 sacks, so good. Congratulations to them. 2 sacks for each of those players. That's not easy to do, especially in this league. They'll be taking on the Indianapolis Colts, who received just their 2nd loss of the season against the Steelers on Sunday, where they had 6 turnovers. So not great. Daniel Jones, he was 31 for 50, 342 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 picks. He did have a rushing touchdown. He lost 2 fumbles, and he was sacked 5 times. So Daniel Jones really just getting the beat down from a Steelers defense who last week allowed the Green Bay Packers to do whatever they wanted in the second half. So we'll get into the Steelers later, but the Steelers, man, they did a very, very good job against this Colts team. Jonathan Taylor held to only 45 yards. Pittman, 9 receptions, 115 yards. Downs had a tutty, and he also fumbled once. It snaps their 4-game winning streak, but a big positive for the Colts heading into this game, they got Sauce Gardner off a trade from the Jets yesterday. So that is a big, big addition for this Colts team, and it seems that they are going all in to try to get the most out of Daniel Jones and this hot Indianapolis team. So I'm going to roll with the Colts in Berlin. I think it's going to be a big bounce-back game for the Colts. We'll see how much Sauce Gardner actually plays, but I do think he makes an immediate impact for this Colts defense. And I think they're going to make life miserable for Michael Penix in Berlin. So Colts win in Germany. Then we will head to Carolina, where the Saints will take on the Panthers. The Saints, just the worst team in football. They're coming off a blowout loss to the Rams. Shug, he started. He's now the starter, Tyler Shug. 176 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Taysom Hill led the Saints rushing attack with 30 yards. Rashid Shaheed, 5 receptions, 68 yards, and that was the last game he played for the Saints. He got traded yesterday to the Seattle Sea Chickens. So it seems like the Saints are just saying, screw it, we're just going to rebuild now. Kamara held to only 14 yards, and he had a fumble, so a bad day for him. Only 16 minutes of possession for the Saints in this game. Not great. Not great at all. 2 of 9 on 3rd down, 0 for 2 on 4th down, and they allowed 171 yards on the ground for the Rams. The Saints are just awful. This team, it sucks to see because I like the Saints, but they are just a mess. Just a mess right now. And you can kind of see, like I said, trading Shaheed, benching Rattler. it's just not going well in the Big Easy right now. They're going to take on the Panthers, who are coming off a gigantic upset win where they were 13.5-point dogs to the Packers. The Panthers came out and did their job. Their pass rush was great. Their O-line, which was basically being strung together with random guys and getting a lot of different mixes in there, played extremely well against the Packers pass rush. Bryce Young really didn't have to do anything. 11 for 20, 102 yards, no touchdowns, an interception in the end zone. But it was all Rico Dowdle, 25 rushing attempts, 130 yards, 2 tutties, and a 5.2 average against the Packers rush defense, which for the most part had been pretty good. McMillan led the team in receiving yards, 4 receptions for 46 yards. Mohing, he had an interception on Jordan Love. And of course Fitzgerald, a 49-yard game-winning field goal for the Panthers. Overall, excuse me, the Panthers playing very, very well. They went out there into Lambeau Field, and they had a game plan, and they stuck to it. And they did a very, very, very good job of that. The Panthers, I think, as I said at the beginning of the season, the Panthers are a rising team. I expected them to do very well this season, and they are doing pretty well. I did say that if Bryce Young was able to play in this game, they would have a very good shot of beating the Packers, and that's exactly what happened. Rico Dowdle ran all over them, and if they have the same kind of game plan taking on the Saints, they're going to win. So I'm going to go with the Panthers here. I think it's going to be a good win for the Panthers, and I think the Saints just continue to crumble. All right, then we will head to Chicago for the Giants taking on the Bears. The Giants coming off a 10-point loss to the San Francisco 49ers. It is now their 3rd straight loss. Jackson Dart, 141 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also led the team in rushing yards. He had 56 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. Singletary, he had 8 attempts for 43 yards on the ground. Darius Slayton led the team in receiving yards, 5 receptions for 67 yards. Johnson, he had a rushing touchdown, or a touchdown along with, I'm going to butcher this name, Ozeki. They both had a tutty. Overall, the Giants' offense, 5 of 12 on 3rd down, which is not great. But what mainly lost them the game is their rushing defense. They allowed CMC to run all over him. 102 yards for CMC and a touchdown. They also let CMC get like 60-something receiving yards and a touchdown there too. So the Giants continuing to struggle. Obviously, the loss of Cam Scatterbo, not having him as a weapon, is brutal for them. And I think the Giants are just a mess right now. I think Brian Dable, the fact that he still has a job, I think is shocking. But we'll see as this season progresses. But they're going to head into Chicago and take on a Bears team who are coming off a big win over the Cincinnati Bengals. That game, as a Packer fan, watching it right about 2 or 3 minutes after the Panthers kicked a game-winning field goal and beat the Packers, I got to watch the Bears get a game-winning touchdown with like a minute something left. Not great. But anyway, the Bears, big win, 47-42. This Bears defense, man, if I wasn't a Packer fan, they're fun. When they're running on all, when they're going on all cylinders, this is a fun team to watch. Caleb Williams, 280 yards, 3 touchdowns. He also had a receiving touchdown. DJ Moore had a passing touchdown. Kyler I'm gonna butcher this too. Kyle Managi, he had 176 yards on the ground. Brown and Moore all had rushing touchdowns. 283 yards on the ground for the Bears. Loveland, he led the team in receiving. He had 6 receptions, 118 yards, and 2 tutties. The defense for the Bears, 2 interceptions, 3 sacks. They also had a forced fumble. The touchdown in the final minute to edge out the Bengals. The defense, other than a couple good things for the defense, they still allowed 42 points from Joe Flacco and the Bengals. So I think that's maybe a little bit of a dim spot for the Bears, is that their defense is allowing so many points, but their offense being able to keep up and still put 47 points on the board makes this Bears team scary. The Bears have been improving. I said at the beginning of the season that the Bears are improving and they're looking better, and if they continue to play this way, especially with Ben Johnson now at the helm, this is a scary Bears team heading into the second half of the season. I'm going to roll with the Bears here. I think they keep rolling. I think this offense has another great game against the Giants defense. And I think they're going to contain Jackson Dart. So I'm going to go with the Bears here. And I think it's a pretty dominant win. So the Bears beat the Giants. All right, then we will head to Houston for a AFC South divisional matchup. The Jaguars taking on the Houston Texans. The Jaguars, like I said earlier, coming off a overtime victory over the Oakland Raiders, the Vegas Raiders. T-Law, 23 for 34, 220 yards and a pick. He did have 2 rushing touchdowns. One of those rushing touchdowns ended up being the game winner in overtime. ETN, he had 22 attempts for 84 yards. Washington, 8 receptions, 90 yards. And Devon Hamilton, he batted down Geno Smith's pass for the 2-point conversion, which ultimately won the Jags the game. Overall, the Jags didn't look horrible, but they also didn't look good either. I thought that the Jags would kind of steamroll the Raiders. But coming off a bye, you would think that they would, but the Raiders came out and played, their defense played pretty good. So the Jags get a big win, 5-3 now. I think that's pretty good. But they'll be taking on the Houston Texans, who had a tough loss against the Broncos, unable to get in the end zone. They lost C.J. Stroud. He is now in concussion protocol. He left the game in the first quarter. Before he left, he was 6 of 10 for 74 yards, and he was sacked twice. Then Davis Mills came in. He was 17 for 30, 137 yards, also sacked twice, no touchdowns, no picks. Chubb led the team in rushing yards. He had 34. Marks, he had 27 rushing yards. Dalton Schultz, 6 receptions for 72 yards. Nico Collins, 7 receptions, 75 yards. Third down was rough for the Texans. They were 3 for 17. Fairbairn was obviously the main focus of the Houston Texans. He was 5 for 6 from kicking. He missed a field goal in the first quarter, which ultimately ended up being the difference in this game. We'll see if C.J. Stroud is going to return. He is in concussion protocol. If not, they will probably roll with Davis Mills. If Stroud plays, which is uncertain, I would go with the Texans here. But I'm going to go with the fact that he's in concussion protocol and we're not sure he's going to play. I'm going to go with the Jags here, but mainly only because Stroud isn't playing. So the Jags get the win in Houston. Then we will go to Miami for an AFC East divisional matchup between the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins. The Bills get their second straight win off the bye. They headed into the bye not looking good. They've come out swinging. Big win over Carolina just last week, putting 40 points on them. Then they had a rough, tough matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs, where they played very, very well. Josh Allen, 23 of 26, 273 yards, 1 touchdown. He also had 41 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns, sacked 3 times. James Cook, 27 attempts, 114 yards. Ty Johnson also had a rushing touchdown for this Buffalo offense. And Kincaid led the team 6 receptions for 101 yards and a touchdown. They held the Chiefs in check for most of this game. The Chiefs did kind of come back just a little bit later on in the fourth quarter, mainly because it looked a little bit dicey there because the Bills had another missed field goal late in the game. I think it bounced off the right upright, if I'm correct. Don't quote me on it. Which kind of made that game feel a little bit closer, but I think it was never really in doubt the Bills were going to win. So a big win for Buffalo, getting them to 6-2. They're heading to Miami to take on the Miami Dolphins, who somehow, they're still a football team, and they're still coached by Mike McDaniel. Somehow, I don't know. The Fins coming off a blowout loss on Thursday Night Football to the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson's return, 28-6. The defense did not look good. Tua, coming off a huge 4-touchdown game with one eye. Apparently he's now back to 2-eye Tua, so back to playing like crap. 25 of 40, 261 yards, no touchdowns, and throwing an interception. He didn't throw 3, but he threw 1. He was also sacked twice. Achane, 14 attempts for 67 yards. He led the team in rushing. Jalen Waddle, 6 receptions, 82 yards. The Dolphins' offense only 2 for 12 on third down. Allowed 150 rushing yards to the Baltimore Ravens. Allowed 4 passing touchdowns to Lamar in his return. And they parted ways with their GM after the game. So, they're not going to make a change at head coach, but they still believe that Mike McDaniel is the guy to get the Fins to 500, maybe. I don't know. I feel bad for this Miami team. I really do. They have plenty of talent. Obviously, losing Tyreek Hill early in the season is brutal, but this Dolphins team looks bad. They look bad. I was really hoping to see them come out and have another great performance, but they just sunk right back into what they were doing all season. I'm going to go with the Bills here. I think it's a pretty easy win for Buffalo. Of course, it's a divisional matchup. You never know. But the Bills are hot. They're coming off 2 big wins, and the Dolphins just still falling apart. So Buffalo with the win against the Dolphins. All right. Speaking of the Ravens, we're going to talk about them next. They are heading into Minnesota to take on the purple incarnation of Satan, the Vikings. The Ravens, of course, like I just said, coming off their second straight win. Lamar Jackson is back. They took down the Dolphins on Thursday night. Lamar Jackson, 18 of 23, 204 yards, 4 touchdowns. King Henry, he had 119 rushing yards. Zay Flowers, 5 receptions, 64 yards. Kohler had a touchdown. Bateman had a touchdown. Mark Andrews coming into prime Mark Andrews, I hope. He had 2 touchdowns against the Dolphins. Very happy to see that. The defense had 2 sacks on Tua, forced 3 overall turnovers. I like that the Ravens seem to be back. I know they're still sitting at 3-5, still kind of a big hole to dig out of yet. But I think now with Lamar healthy, King Henry still playing well, if this defense continues to get turnovers and get back to form, this Ravens team could be scary down the stretch, and I wouldn't count them out to still win the AFC North. I know, again, it's a big hole to crawl out of, but this Ravens team, if they continue to look good, don't count them out just yet. They're going to be taking on the purple incarnation of Satan, the Vikings, who had a big win against the Detroit Lions and J.J. McCarthy's return. Let's see here. 27 for 24.
I'm going to bomb his video. Hi.
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 Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye. My loving wife. Anyway, J.J. McCarthy, his return as the starting quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings. They take down the Detroit Lions 27-24. And I don't know if this was mainly the Lions couldn't get anything going, or if the Vikings were just looking that good. But McCarthy, 14 of 25, 143 yards, one touchdown, one pick. He also had a rushing touchdown. He was sacked 5 times. Aaron Jones, he had 9 attempts for 78 yards. He did leave the game with, I think it was a shoulder injury. He is questionable for this game. Addison, 2 receptions for 48 yards. He led the team in receiving, but close behind him was Justin Jefferson, 6 receptions for 47 yards and 1 touchdown. Hawkinson, he also had a touchdown. The Vikings defense played very, very well against an explosive Detroit Lions offense. 5 sacks on Jared Goff. Really held the Lions rushing attack in check. I believe they only had like 65, 40 some. We'll get into that. Actually, let me look quick. Because I actually want to make a big point of it. They forced Detroit to 65 rushing yards in total. And if you know anything about the Lions' offense and the rushing attack, it's a main focus. So that's a big reason why the Vikings won this game. I do think that the Baltimore Ravens will take down the Vikings. I think that Baltimore's coming in hot. I got a feeling that the Vikings will not be able to contain Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. And I do think that the Ravens defense is going to play better than Detroit. I know Detroit had a lot of injuries. They still do. But I'm going to go with the Ravens to win this one. All right, then we will head to Jersey for the Browns and the Jets. Both teams coming off a bye, getting some much needed rest. Last time we saw the Browns, it was a loss to the Patriots. Dylan Gabriel, he had 2 touchdowns, 2 picks in that game. Judkins, he had 4 attempts for only 14 yards. So the rushing attack, not great for the Browns. Farron and Njoku both had a rushing touchdown. The main focus of this game was Myles Garrett had 5 sacks by himself. Myles Garrett, again, being the anchor of that defense. I know he hasn't had the best season so far, but 5 sacks is huge for them. They'll be taking on the Jets, who just decided that they don't want to do anything. They got their 1 win, and they decided that they're going to trade away Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams yesterday. So kind of shocking to me, but it seems that they kind of want to maybe start this rebuild a little bit early. The Jets coming off their first win against the Bengals before the bye week. Breece Hall, he had a game-winning touchdown pass in the 4th quarter. They had 23 points in that 4th quarter against the Bengals. Justin Fields was 21 of 32, 244 yards and a touchdown. Breece Hall, like I said, outside of that passing touchdown, he had 18 attempts for 133 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns. Johnson and Taylor both had a touchdown. I think with the loss of these two guys, Williams and Gardner, it makes me think that the Jets don't really care too much anymore. I think this is going to be a close game. I am going to go with the Jets here. I still think that they're going to be able to make Dylan Gabriel uncomfortable. I think Fields is still playing. I think he's going to be able to move around the pocket very, very well, even though he's going to be running away from Myles Garrett. I think this is a low-scoring game, but I am going to go with the Jets to get the win. All right, then we will head to Tampa for the Patriots and the Buccaneers. The Patriots' close win over the Falcons on Sunday. Their 6th straight win. Drake May was 19 of 24, 259 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. He was sacked 6 times by the Falcons' defense. Henderson had 55 yards on the ground. Jennings, he had a rushing touchdown and 35 yards. Douglas, 4 receptions for 100 yards and a touchdown. Diggs also had a touchdown. 8 of 12 on third down, so pretty good. Only 2 penalties on the day, so a lot of discipline on the Patriots. I think that just goes to show how good of a coach Mike Vrabel is. They were kind of saved by that missed PAT. I'll just say that. They didn't have their best performance. Their defense didn't anyway. And they'll be taking on a tough opponent, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are coming off a bye. That team has a lot of injuries. They needed the rest. The last time we saw the Bucs, they won 23-3 over the Saints. In a game where Baker, he played average. He was 18 of 24, or 15 of 24, 153 yards. He had no touchdowns, no interceptions. He did have a fumble. Johnson, 5 receptions for 43 yards. Tucker, 12 attempts, 42 yards, and a touchdown. Their defense forced 5 sacks on the Saints. 2 interceptions, 2 fumbles against the Saints. They were 3 for 13 on third down, which is not great. But I think that coming off the bye week, I do expect them to look a lot better. And I am going to pick them over the Patriots. I think it'll be a close game. I think this is maybe the game of the week, in my opinion. I think this is going to be a close game. It's an interconference game, so it might not matter too much for the playoffs down the road, but should be a fun game. I am going to go with the Buccaneers. All right. Then we will have the Cardinals taking on the Sea Chickens in a second matchup between these two teams. The Sea Chickens won the first meeting earlier, week 4. The Cardinals coming off a big win in Dallas on Monday night. Jacoby Brissett looked good, 21 of 31, 261 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also had a rushing touchdown. 14 attempts on the ground for DeMarcado? I know I'm butchering that name, I'm sorry. 14 attempts, 74 yards. Marvin Harrison Jr., 7 receptions, 96 yards, and a touchdown. Trey McBride, he also had a touchdown on 5 receptions. Defense forced 3 turnovers on the Cowboys, 1 interception, 2 fumbles, 5 sacks on Prescott. Snapping their 5-game losing streak. And yesterday, they were kind of saying that Jacoby Brissett was still the backup quarterback, that Kyler Murray was still the starter. It seemed to kind of change that tone a little bit, saying that Jacoby Brissett is going to start against the Sea Chickens. They're saying Kyler still isn't healthy, but I think they're maybe realizing that this offense functions a lot better under Jacoby Brissett than it did under Kyler. I know that the Cardinals kind of have to play Kyler because they gave him so much money, but I think sticking with Jacoby Brissett is the smart decision. They're going to be taking on the Sea Chickens, who had an absolutely beautiful game against the Commanders on Sunday Night Football, winning 38-14. Sam Darnold, 21 of 24, 330 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 interception. He was 16 of 16 with 4 touchdowns at halftime. So Sam Darnold having a spectacular game. He wasn't sacked at all. So his O-line making life easy for him. Kenneth Walker, 11 attempts for 42 yards. Burner had a rushing touchdown. JSN, who is playing like one of the best wide receivers in football, if not the best, 8 receptions for 129 yards, or 124, 129. White and Ariel both had a touchdown, and Horton had 2 touchdowns. They sacked Daniels 4 times on defense and had an interception and a fumble. So the Sea Chickens having a near-perfect game. And I am going to pick the Sea Chickens here. I think that they keep rolling with this momentum. I think Sam Darnold has a fantastic game. I think this defense is better than the Dallas defense that the Cardinals just faced. I think they're going to be able to make Jacoby Brissett uncomfortable. I think it'll be a close game like it was in Week 4, but I am going to roll with the Sea Chickens to get the win. All right, then we will head to Santa Clara for another divisional matchup, and this time an NFC West divisional matchup. Both NFC West, all 4 NFC West teams are taking on divisional opponents. Cardinals, Sea Chickens, and the Rams and the Niners. The Rams coming off a blowout win against the Saints. Matthew Stafford continuing to play at MVP level. 281 yards and 4 touchdowns, sacked twice. Kyron Williams, 25 rushing attempts for 114 yards and a touchdown. Puka Nacua, 7 receptions, 95 yards and a touchdown. Devontae Adams added 2 touchdowns. Tyler Higbee had a touchdown. They dominated time of possession with 43 minutes, 53 seconds. This offense, 30 first downs against the Saints, 7 of 14 on third, and 2 of 2 on fourth down. The Rams played extremely well, as they have all season. I know that it's against the Saints, and good teams beat up bad teams. The Packers don't, but whatever. But the Rams did exactly what they were supposed to do. They took down the Saints. Exactly what they should have done. They'll be taking down the Niners, who are coming off a 10-point victory over the Giants. Mac Jones, 19 of 24, 235 yards, 2 touchdowns, sacked twice, and he did fumble the ball. The main focus of this Niners offense was CMC. 28 rushing attempts, 106 yards, and a touchdown. He also added 5 receptions, 67 yards receiving, and a receiving touchdown. Robinson Jr. also had a rushing touchdown, and Jennings 4 receptions, 41 yards, and a touchdown in a pretty good performance against the Giants. This Niners team continues to roll, even with all the injuries they're dealing with. That's why I think that if the Niners were healthy, they'd probably be one of the best teams in football. But they continue to suffer from injuries and setbacks, and they continue to overcome all this adversity, which is why I'm going to actually pick them to beat the Rams, get CMC going, and they should be rolling. I just have a feeling the Rams are going to falter just a little bit. I think it'll be a close game, but it should be a fun one. The matchups between the Rams and the Niners always seem to be fun matchups. All right. Then the Blue Kitties will take on the Commies in an NFC divisional rematch. I think that this game's going to go a lot different than the playoff game did. Detroit, tough loss against the Vikings. Jared Goff, 25 of 37, 284, 2 touchdowns. He was sacked 5 times. Biggest point of emphasis on this offense that did not work was the rushing attack. Like I said earlier, only 65 yards on the ground. Montgomery had 40 of those yards. Gibbs had 25 of those yards. Montgomery did have a touchdown. St. Brown, 9 receptions for 97 yards. Didn't get into the end zone at all. Laporta, Williams, both had receiving touchdowns. But third down was brutal for this Lions team. They were 5 of 17. 3 of 3 on fourth down like normal. 10 penalties. Obviously, undisciplined in this game is going to hurt you, which is kind of strange for Dan Campbell's team. But I think that no rushing attack, and 10 penalties is just brutal on this Lions team. But they'll be taking on the Commies, who are also coming off a big loss, obviously a bigger loss, but Jaden Daniels going down. He's going to miss, I think I saw 4 weeks at minimum. They lost the Sea Chickens in blowout fashion. Jaden Daniels, 16 of 22, 153 yards, no touchdowns, and an interception. He did have a rushing touchdown and led the team in rushing yards for 51. Sacked 4 times. Of course, one of those sacks hurt his elbow. They're saying he dislocated it. It looked a lot worse on TV than I guess what it ended up being. So that's good. I mean, it's not good he got hurt, but it's good that it's not as bad as what they were initially thinking on Sunday night. I think I'm going to go with the Blue Kitties on this one. I think that their offense is just... I think it's going to be a good bounce back week for the Lions. But it seems so far in these prediction videos that every time I think the Lions are going to blow out their opponent like they should, they ended up losing. But I am going to go with the Blue Kitties here. I'm not going to say it's a blowout, but they're going to be taking on Marcus Mariota and a beat-up Commanders team. I think this is a bounce-back win for the Blue Kitties, and obviously hoping for nothing less than a speedy recovery for Jaden Daniels. So Blue Kitties win in our nation's capital. All right. We only got 2 games left. The Sunday Night Football matchup. Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Bolts of LA. The Steelers coming off a big win over the Indianapolis Colts, to where a defense that was ranked 30th in the league, the worst in franchise history, forced 6 turnovers on the best team in football. And 5 sacks, too. So, I mean, this defense looked the way that they should. They're the highest paid defense in the NFL, and they did exactly what they needed to do in this game. We'll see if it'll be consistent, but nonetheless, they did their job on Sunday. A-Rod was 25 of 35, 203 yards, and a touchdown. Warren, 16 attempts, 31 yards, but he had 2 touchdowns. Austin, 5 receptions, 56 yards. Firemouth, 27 yards and a tutty. Porter Jr., Sawyer, and Wilson all had interceptions. Porter Jr. also had a sack. Highsmith had 2 sacks. Benton had a sack, and T.J. Watt also had a sack. So, like I said last week, if this Steelers team, if they don't have their star players doing superhero crap, they're not going to win. Well, their star players did superhero crap. So, big win for the Steelers. Big showing from a defense that just looked abysmal all season. But this defense is going to have a test. They're going to be taking on Justin Herbert and the Bolts. The Bolts are coming off a close win over the Titans. I did think the Bolts were going to blow out the Titans, but it was close. The Titans played better. 27-20 was the final score. Justin Herbert was 14 of 29, 250, 2 touchdowns. He did throw a pick six, which made this game a little bit closer in the end. He was sacked 6 times. So this Chargers O-line has to play a lot better. I know Joe Alt is hurt again. They're going to be taking on this pass rush that played very, very well against Indianapolis. Herbert could be in trouble here. Herbert also led the team in rushing yards, 57 rushing yards, and a touchdown. Gadsden, he had 5 receptions for 64 yards. Johnston and Matluck both had a touchdown, only 3 penalties on the day. So Harbaugh's team, very disciplined. And they had 4 sacks on Cam Ward. I expected the Chargers defense to be playing a lot better against a struggling Titans team. But, like I said, any given Sunday, and this Sunday, this week, the Bolts didn't play the best. And I think that's a little bit concerning. I am going to go with the Steelers. I do think that the Steelers defense is going to play, I think they're going to play just as well. If they can get this momentum going, they can continue to do this, the Steelers team is going to be dangerous. Aaron Rodgers, as long as he plays well, plays average, no turnovers, I'm going to roll with the Steelers here. I think it's close, but I'm going to roll with the Steelers. Then, Monday Night Football. The Philadelphia Eagles, the defending Super Bowl champions, will head into Lambeau Field to take on the Green Bay Packers. The Eagles, coming off a bye, and they needed it. Last time we saw the Eagles, they had a 38-20 victory over the Giants. Jalen Hurts, 15 of 20, 179 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, sacked 4 times. Saquon Barkley, 14 attempts, 150 yards and a touchdown. He did leave that game with an injury. We don't have an injury report for this game because it's on Monday. We don't get an injury report prior to Thursday. But I'm assuming he's going to be ready to go. Tank Bigsby, 9 attempts for 104 yards on the ground, so even without Barkley, they were still rolling on the ground. Smith, 6 receptions for 84 yards. Dotson, he had 1 reception, that was a 40-yard touchdown. Dallas Goedert, 3 receptions, 28 yards, 2 tutties. Saquon Barkley also had 4 receptions for 24 yards and a touchdown. They had 5 sacks on Jackson Dart. Third down, not great, 2 of 8. 2 of 2 on fourth down, of course. Excuse me, the tush push. 5 penalties for this Eagles team, and they're getting hot. They're getting hot, and they're going to be taking on a Packers team coming off a brutal loss. Brutal loss to the Panthers, brutal loss in other ways. A lot of injuries on Sunday. Of course, Tucker Kraft tearing his ACL, losing him for the season is a brutal gut punch to the Green Bay Packers. Colby Wooden got hurt in this game. Matthew Golden got hurt. Aaron Banks got hurt. Just a poor performance by this Packers team. Jordan Love, 26 of 37, 273 yards, no touchdowns, had a boneheaded interception. Throwing into triple coverage, the ball floated to the right a little bit, right into the wide open defensive player. Josh Jacobs, 17 attempts for 87 yards and a touchdown. Manuel Wilson, who played very well against the Steelers, pretty much ineffective, 6 attempts for only 16 yards on the ground. Dobbs, the leading receiver, 7 receptions for 41 yards. Christian Watson, 2 receptions, 58 yards. Savion Williams, 2 receptions, 12 yards. He had that brutal fumble at the beginning of the game. Ran into his own guy and then fumbled the ball. I think that was the Packers' first possession. Tucker Kraft, of course, losing him is brutal. He went down. Matthew Golden was kind of ineffective. 7 for 13 on the ground, or 7 for 13 on third down, 2 for 3 on fourth down. The one fourth down they missed was 4th and 8. It was well in field goal range. Matt LaFleur decides to go for it, and it was not a good decision. Bad play overall. Of course, Jordan scrambling around. Wide receivers couldn't get open. That entire play did not work. I'm not going to put it all at the feet of LaFleur or all the feet of Jordan Love. The Packers overall played horrifically. This offense was 1 for 5 in the red zone. Unacceptable. Completely unacceptable. Brandon McManus, 2 for 3. He missed again. Brandon McManus clearly not 100%. Even Matt LaFleur said in his press conference he's still working through his injury, and they're still going to roll with him. Matt LaFleur said that they plan on continuing to roll with Brandon McManus. I don't understand that reasoning. I don't understand why you would continue to run with a player that's injured when you have a completely healthy kicker, not even like on the roster, but not even active. What are we doing? Wouldn't you just put McManus on IR, let him get 100%, and let the substitute kicker, the substitute teacher, kick? Let Haversick kick. It would have made a big difference on Sunday. I'm not saying that the Packers would have won 100%, but it would have made a big difference if you had made that kick. The Packers could have won. They should have won. But if McManus continues to struggle, I don't understand why you wouldn't put him on IR, let Haversick kick. He was perfect. He played for, 2-3 weeks, and he was perfect. Got the franchise record for 61 yards. Longest field goal in Packers franchise history. And he's sitting on the bench for no reason whatsoever. No reason whatsoever. Haversick needs to be kicking if McManus isn't healthy. Pass rush was completely ineffective. McKinney had the one lone strip sack, which was a sack, but then the Panthers got it and gained a whole bunch of yards anyway. McKinney had an interception. Micah Parsons, first time in his career, he did not have a QB pressure. Allowed Donald to run all over him. Nixon had another brutal defensive pass interference in the end zone. And that ended up giving Carolina 7 points. So overall, this Packers team on all sides of the ball played a horrible game, and I think it was a worse performance than the Week 3 loss to the Cleveland Browns. And they better clean it up because now they got to play the Eagles in prime time. The Eagles coming off a bye, they're healthier, they're relaxed, they're re-energized, and the Packers need to win this game. The Packers, of course, played the Eagles twice last year, once in Brazil and once in the wildcard round, lost both games. They have not had much success against the Eagles in recent years, and it's going to be a tough game on Monday night. I am going to go with the Packers, though, because I do think that the Packers will have a bounce-back win, and it just shows just how crazy this NFL season is, that the Packers can have a horrible game against the Panthers, that they could come out and wallop the Eagles. I can see it happening. I think it's going to happen. I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers over the Philadelphia Eagles. Well, that's all I have for Week 10. That's all of our games. Hopefully I do a little bit better in my picks this week compared to last week. Of course, post-game for the Packers will be Monday night. And I will see you guys then. Thanks for watching. Go Pack Go.